How are you? Let me mute this real quick.
Good evening. Before I call this meeting to order, I want to announce that some commissioners, staff, and the public are attending remotely via Zoom, by phone, or on site. All participants joining by phone should mute their phones when not speaking to avoid background noise inside the meeting. During the meeting, please make sure that you announce yourself by name and title every time you speak so the public that is observing knows who is speaking. This is critical given the number of remote participants and its current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General's office. I will now call this meeting to order. Clerk, could you please give the roll call?
Roll call. McKiernan.
Here.
Ramirez. We have an absence memo. Johnson.
Here.
Kane. Here. Markley. We have an absence memo. Stites.
Here.
Davis.
Here.
Bynum. We have an absence memo. Burrows.
Here.
Townsend. Here. Garner.
Here. Invocation is going to be given tonight by Commissioner Harold Johnson of Faith Deliverance Church of God in Christ, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Within the pale of Christendom, when we partake of the Eucharist, we are reminded of the fact that the church is a community. And so tonight, in that same spirit, I encourage us to consider all of Wyandotte County, whether it be Kansas City, Kansas, Edwardsville, Kansas, or Bonner Springs, as one community. Let us pray. God of communion, tonight I pray for every citizen that calls our cities home. I pray for the well-being of all of our citizens, regardless of race, creed, or color. I pray especially for the poor, the marginalized, those who have been discriminated against, those whose voices have been muted. Anoint us tonight as mayor and commission. Bring us all together in a place of communion with one another. I pray this in the name of the one who communes with us. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner Johnson, providing that invocation. Honestly, Clerk, is there any revisions to tonight's agenda?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, a blue sheet has been issued removing items 2, 3, and 4 from the standing committee agenda. Those are all the revisions.
Thank you. We have 2 items on the mayor's agenda. The first item under the mayor's agenda is our public forum, allowing citizens to express concerns and present solutions relating solely and specifically to unified government span of control, our interests. I will now open the public comment and I'll ask the clerk to provide a synopsis indicating how many comments were submitted to the clerk's office.
We have 5 individuals who signed up in the lobby or in the chambers to speak, and we have 2 individuals who've requested to speak online.
Thank you. Staff will call your name for any residents that want to speak, and you can come to the podium. Once you have been acknowledged, we ask that you provide your name and city of residency for the record. And you'll be given 2 minutes to state your comments. Staff will announce that you have been given 1 minute remaining, so you can wrap up your comments. This meeting will be conducted in accordance with the rules of procedure, and if remarks are determined to be out of order, I shall instruct the speaker to stop making such remarks and declare them to be out of order. Derogatory and improper language or remarks that are offensive will not be tolerated. If you persist with such derogatory statements, you may be asked to leave the commission chambers, or your comments will not be entered into record. I'll turn it over to the clerk at this time.
Our first speaker is Desiree Bush. Shirley Wainwright will be on deck.
Right. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, and County Administration. My name is Desiree Bush, and I live in Kansas City, Kansas. Tonight, I would like to recommend 2 projects to you all. First, there's an issue with the trash. Over the past couple years, I've noticed so much trash within Wyandotte County, particularly on the east end. And as we know, trash can be a common nuisance to our urban area. I would like to propose the Community Beautification Unit. Now, this unit can potentially be housed in the SOAR or Livable Neighborhoods program. The purpose of the unit or the projects of the unit would include trash pickup, flags, and signage, something comparable to what we see on Minnesota Avenue to increase community morale. And this can be a hub for a new code violation program / class, which I'll call the property etiquette class. And this class would be offered to those individuals who are ongoing code violators. So if you think about it, it is additional
1 minute
revenue for our
remaining.
city. Also, we could partner with Livable Neighborhoods, NRC, also the Sheriff's Office and District Court for those folks who are in jail for minor issues such as like tickets or community service for folks who need to face a certain sentence. The second recommendation I have is a lot of our folks want to see fireworks in our community, and a lot of people leave the county, including myself, to go see firework display. Turner Recreation and Bonner Springs pay for a community firework display, and I would like to propose that Parks and Rec Department host the annual firework display for our public. Again, potential revenue for example, parking permit fee, or you could purchase your ticket online, or it could be free, either or. So a thing that I thought about for such a proposal would be.
Your time has expired.
May I ask for another, just 30 seconds, a minute? Okay, all right, thank you.
Our next speaker is Shirley Wainwright. Curtis Martin will be on deck.
Good evening. I know that some people have been getting buildable lots from Land Bank approved. May I go in and submit my application for approval for a yard expansion?
Ma'am, if you could just talk into the mic and your name and place of residence, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, Shirley Wainwright. The residence where I'm adjacent to,
Where do you live?
408 Haskell. And that's the question that I'm asking. To apply for application.
You can continue with your statement.
I can't hear you.
This is a input and recommendation, so you would make your statement. This isn't a meeting where we answer questions during this meeting.
Oh, that's what I was asking about.
Okay, what you can do is I'll take your information, or I'll have someone from my staff, and then we'll get back with you on that, okay, to answer your question. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Curtis Martin. Reginald Jones is on deck.
Good evening. I'm Curtis Martin, 3071 North 32nd. I've been a lifelong resident in Wyandotte County. And with all due respect, this new mayor-elect had my vote, and I respect him being in the position he's in. I'd like to make a request that all you commissioners get on board and follow his route. And furthermore, we need a transfer station for trash in Wyandotte County. People have to drive too far out to dump their trash. That's why they dump it on side of the roads and in the streets. So it'd be good if we had some transfer stations so people can pay to dump their trash. And another issue is the BPU situation. On our bills, since 2006, we've been paying excess charge because we're connected. And everybody get a monthly fee whether they use utilities or not. And on the average amount of $40 per month, times the 68,000 plus customers.
1 minute remaining.
This is over $3 million a month that they're collecting, and nobody knows where this money is going. Bill Johnson said the money was going toward renewing the electricity, maybe the telephone wires and stuff in that area, but there's nothing been done since 2006. Here and there, a few spots have. But this excess charge needs to be taken off our light bills so people can be able to pay the bills because it's getting strenuous. The stormwater amount they put on our bills started off with $4 a month. Now it's $14 a month times 68,000 customers. That's a lot of money too they're getting, and nobody knows where it's going. So I'd like for you commissioners to look into that situation and do something about it because it's getting ridiculous. Thank you. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Reginald Jones. Carolyn Wyatt will be on deck.
Yes, my name is Reginald Jones, and I'm a resident of Kansas City, Kansas, and I live at 1220 Cleveland. There's a couple of things I want to say out loud. One, I wanted to make the record clear that to Mrs. Gail Townsend and Mr. Sorry, I can't see. Oh, Brother Johnston, Mr. Johnston, Harold Johnson. I just want to apologize to you on the comments that I made last month. I know you are in the, you've been working tirelessly in the community, both of you, and I just want to let you know that, but I was just kind of rambunctious. I wanted to say things about you being visible, not being visible in the community, but I know you are, but it is really a dire need that we see you more in the community. And Gail, Ms. Townsend, I've seen you day for yesterday, and I just want to just say thank you. You made yourself available in the community.
1 minute remaining.
There's about 3 things I want to say. One is that to the commissioners in the 4th district, and then I think in the 5th district, there's a couple of things that I've noticed, and I just want to be your ears and your eyes in the community. There's a couple of problems. One, they need to have more speed bumps around Carruthers Elementary School. They have them all, and all the other elementary schools. They need speed bumps. They do a lot of speed in the area. Number 2, they need to have a tree that's in the vicinity of Park Heathwood over the part of the water park. It's dangerous. It need to be cut down, or something is going to fall on the kids. And the last is that oh yeah, they need to have a track and field at Carruthers Carbooth Elementary School. It just been built a year ago. They haven't practiced it on. They
Your
practice
time
it on
has
the
expired.
trees, on the land, and in the grass and everywhere. So I just want to make that known that these are things that need to be attended to around the community. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Carolyn Wyatt.
Carolyn Wyatt, 359 True. A few things I want to say about Boston Daniel Park. That's Boston Daniel. Her name is Miss Daniels. Anyway, she had a 3-on-3 scheduled at Kensington Park, at Kensington Recreation Center. And the staff had her change her 3-on-3 after she had it all scheduled, ready to go. And people come there, but they said they didn't have staff. But I did talk to the guy that works there, and he said he would, but they're not asking anybody. They're not saying, would you mind working overtime or whatever to get it done? She had 3-on-3. They told her to cancel it until August. So now she had to cancel that 3-on-3 to August. Also, I had a summer program scheduled for Beatrice Lee. After I got it all scheduled, got people, applications in, got everything scheduled, ready to go, because I did a spring.
1 minute remaining.
And anyway, they canceled that and they let YMCA have a summer program there. So our youth that were scheduled to be there, they couldn't have a summer program. So the staff, like I said, they're not working with us. So the things they're trying to say that the gyms are empty. So why are we having these gyms? But it's like they're trying to make them empty, because they're working against us when we're they're charging people so much money to use the gym. If you live in Wyandotte County and you run a basketball league there, not a league, but practice, they want to charge you $35 an hour just to come and practice. Why should our kids have to pay the one that gets it for them, pay $35 an hour just to practice when the gym is sitting empty all the time? Most of the time you go by there, any gyms are empty. And they're trying to make them look like that. So I think you need to check into that and make sure that our kids have a safe place to go. And we should have had our summer camp.
We have Evelyn Hill online. Ms. Hill, go ahead.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I am Dr. Evelyn Hill, and I live here in Kansas City, Kansas. And I am here tonight as the Director of Equity and Justice at Avenue of Life. And I am also a member of the Mayor's Housing Task Force and the Justice and Equity Coalition. And I'm really just speaking in behalf and support of the presentation that will be made by Amber Adams and the United Churches for Justice. We want to make sure that everyone knows that we support Proposal 1 of the Affordable Housing and Equity Trust Fund, increasing housing equity in the historically redlined areas in Wyandotte County, and Proposal 2, hiring the National Network and Safety Communities to provide technical assistance to implement group violence intervention in Wyandotte County. So excited. I went to the event. I saw the mayor, about 600 people in attendance. Very exciting event. Thank you to all of our commissioners and mayor for the work that you do. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Maddie Waldeck. Ms. Waldeck, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Maddie Waldeck and I live in Bonner Springs, Kansas. At last month's public comment, several accusations were made against the commissioners, with one of the accusations being the commissioners are not accessible and visible in the community. A few weeks ago, I emailed Commissioners Bynum, Burrows, and Townsend about a concern that my parents had in their neighborhood at 57th and Leavenworth Road. All three commissioners responded within 24 hours. Commissioner Townsend even drove by the area of concern and followed up with a phone call to my parents. This is a type of responsiveness you don't typically see in larger cities and counties. I have personally reached out to Commissioner Stites, who is my commissioner, about a concern that I had, and again, he reached back out to me in less than 24 hours. I routinely see all commissioners at community events and see their strong social media presence and accessibility. It is important for this commission to know that these complaints lodged against you may be the experience of some, but certainly does not represent the experience of all. Secondly, please do not accept the Please do not accept the revenue neutral rate. The revenue neutral rate does not take into consideration a growing community with an infrastructure that is crumbling. Capture the growth and allocate those dollars toward infrastructure. Lastly, I would encourage this commission, mayor, and administrator to take a very strong look at the cost savings this organization is realizing on the backs of a very overworked and undervalued staff. Having over 200 vacant positions is saving this organization a lot of money. At $15 per hour with a 30% benefit rate for 12 months for 200 position totals $8.1 million conservatively. It's my recommendation you repurpose those dollars to recognize the hardworking staff who work tirelessly to ensure continuity of service during an especially difficult time. You could comfortably give each employee in this organization a sizable reward and still capture cost savings. Thank you.
We have Rose online.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Rose Iltz. I live on Strawberry Hill, and I just had a couple of things I wanted to mention and probably ask for help on. The first thing is safety. We're having a big problem, a big increase in shots fired up on Strawberry Hill, specifically in front of St. John Baptist Church. Resulting in an almost deadly experience last night. Wanted to see what we could do as a neighborhood association or just neighbors to help the UG curb this violence. I'd really like to try and get some traction on this problem, getting together with whoever the stakeholders are and the staff that could help get this resolved. I realize it's an uphill battle and a never-ending one, but we need. Excuse me?
You have 1 minute remaining.
Okay, thank you. And then the other problem, of course, is the 505 Central Development Project. I know they're in the process of negotiating incentives with the UG right now, but I feel like these developers who come in from outside of Wyandotte County and want to try and use up our resources and get us to pay for them to do that, it's an untenable situation. The UG can't afford that, and I'd like to see any kind of incentives for that project denied. I know we need development, we need more housing. This just isn't the way to do it. Thank you.
We have Jerry Hessel online.
Hi, this is Jerry Mulder Hessel. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My husband and I, Buck Hessel, have submitted to the mayor and to all the commissioners and to Pam Curtis and David Haley our list of items that we feel are important about the funding for 505 Central Luxury High-Rise 8-story complex. We are not in support of this complex, and I can list several neighborhood groups that are not in support of this complex. And the last thing we want to do is to see our public funds and public dollars going to support this project when they're not building in conformity to what the neighborhood wants. It is our sincere plea that you honor the constituents of this community and support our desire to limit the scope and size of this development. We are offering a valid compromise for the public good of our community. It is our intention to inform all homeowners and the public surrounding this development of the financial incentives and giveaways the UG is offering to the developers, which serve only to increase sunflower development, the owners and the investors' profits, and serve no public good. Thank you.
Mayor, we have no other requests to speak.
Come to the podium, state your name and address.
Also, I was going to say, she said I didn't need to. Apologize for any lack of decorum. My name is Maida Townsend. I live at 553 Freeman Avenue in Kansas City, Kansas. I am also an AmeriCorps Vista member, currently serving as a communications coordinator for Groundwork NRG, a small but mighty nonprofit organization. Last week, a concern was raised about trails being proposed for the Northeast Corridor. And I'll paraphrase the question: why do we need trails? That money would be better spent on community centers, playgrounds, parks, and other things that our children in the community so desperately need. First, I'm glad someone voiced that concern to you, our local governing body, because I completely agree that we need all of those things and a lot more. I'm originally from Flint, Michigan, so I know about cities in desperate need. I've lived here for 10 years now, and in 10 years I've lived here, I've not seen a lot of improvement, at least not in the lives of the everyday, ordinary citizens. And even though I think that is shameful and
1 minute remaining.
inexcusable, I don't have time to address the lack of progress. And just so you know, I'm doing something about it: cleanups, food drives, building playgrounds, etc., to help coordinate, and also help coordinate 2 community festivals for the Northeast Kansas Heritage Trail. And that trail is why I'm here tonight. I'm here tonight to tell you and everyone who will listen with an open heart and ears what trails are good for. Build trails can be an economic engine. There are obvious physical and mental health benefits, especially when you consider that people live in the Northeast corridor die up to 20 years earlier due to lack of green infrastructure, etc. There is community pride. It attracts tourists and visitors and new residents. It helps property valuations and connects communities. I know the UG already values this. I know because in 2018, you took the time to create the NEAMP, and this
Your time
is
has
my
expired.
Bible. So I say to you, get that Build Back Better money and build us a beacon of light and a jewel everyone wants to see, called the historic Northeast Kansas City, Kansas Heritage Trail. Thank you.
Okay, one at a time. If you'd come forward one at a time. If you'd come to the front, those of you who still want to speak, if you have a desire to speak, just come to the front on the front row. And then we'll take you one at a time. Just please state your name and your address for record. Thank you.
Good evening, Michonne Arrington, 1309 North 79th Terrace, Kansas City, Kansas, for Churches United for Justice. We signed up online. Churches United for Justice is an ecumenical nonprofit that seeks to be a voice for Wyandotte County. We began by holding listening sessions to understand the problems of our community. From there, we came to a consensus of seeking to better understand the needs of housing and violence in Wyandotte County. We effectively researched with experts and community partners to better understand how these issues were having an impact on our community. We met with over 15 various organizations and experts to learn about the problems at hand. We asked about solutions that seem to be currently in conversation among unified government departments and officials, as well as community partners. We want Churches United to help be a voice among unheard voices throughout Wyandotte County. We were able to have this happen through our inaugural Nehemiah action this past Tuesday, June 7th, at the Mount Carmel Church of God in Christ. At the Nehemiah action, Mayor Garner agreed to help us to bring proposals to the full commission by September 2022. Our housing proposal is the creation of an affordable housing and equity trust fund. This will not only help with the development
You
of
have 1
housing,
minute remaining.
but increase and promote homeownership in Wyandotte County with an emphasis in historically redlined communities. The violence proposal is to hire the National Network on Safe Communities to provide technical assistance to bring group violence intervention, GVI, to Kansas City, Kansas. GVI is an effective method for crime reduction that is recognized by the Department of Justice that has been proven to reduce violent crime by up to 60% in cities where it has been implemented. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to working with you all.
My name is Judy Ansell. I live at 4014 Metropolitan Avenue in Kansas City, Kansas. And I come as a member of the Safe and Welcoming Coalition. Of course, that item is on the agenda tonight to amend the Safe and Welcoming Act in order to bring it into compliance with the preemption law that was passed by the state legislature. And when the Public Works and Safety Committee met, we testified and requested that there be more time for the coalition to be able to examine the amendments that have been proposed. And they said that they were going to put it on the agenda and we could still make our points. And so we have 2 requests. We understand that the act needs to be amended in order to diminish any risk for the city. But there are 2 things that are in the amendments which
1
we would
minute
like to see
remaining.
changed. The first is the name. the Safe and Welcoming City Act really needs to be changed because of the actions of the state government. This law is no longer safe and welcoming, especially for our immigrant community. We would like to propose that the name be changed to the Wyandotte County Community Identification Act or Community ID Act. The second thing we ask is that in making the changes, the attorney suggested that the ID have an expiration date of 2 years. We think that 2 years is extremely short, and we would propose an expiration time of 5 years, because it will, if it's only 2 years, what's going to happen is it's going to increase the costs and the need for administration.
Your time
but
has
also
expired.
a number of people who expire are probably not going to renew. And if we want more people to do it, then we need to have a longer time. That's all. Thank you.
We have one additional speaker online, Thomas Gordon.
Good evening, and thank you for this short notice. I've been listening to the concerns of the people, but I wonder how the commissioners are able to record and respond to all the concerns. I don't see anyone taking any notes, and I don't know how you got. Well, thank you very much. But at the same time, I just wondered how everyone was going to get a response back to their concerns. Would that be publicly made? Oh, I'm sorry. Thomas Gordon. I live in Kansas City, Kansas, 2521 North 7th Street. Excuse me. Is there a response?
Mr. Gordon, this is input and recommendation. So
Okay.
your recommendation has been no.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I would like to see some way that the responses are made public as to the concerns of the people so that it can become a public record. And thank you very much for the time.
Mr. Mayor, we have no other requests to speak.
Is there anyone in the audience that chooses to speak before we close this segment of the mayor's agenda? This is a unique opportunity that I felt would be of value to this commission to hear from the concerns of our residents and constituents and those that have interest in Wyandotte County and interests of the unified government's span of control. So we've got one. Please come to the podium and state your name. And address for record, I'm sorry.
Good evening. My name is Reese Towers. My address is 615 North 82nd Street. I want to address the cancellation of the meeting today at 4 p.m. with our developers. It was brought to our attention that we didn't get any type of participation from our commissioners. The community wanted to know why. Because there's development going on all around us, but the area that needs to be developed. That's a highly concern of the people in Wyandotte County that lives in that area. So I would like to know why there was no real response to the cancellation of today's meeting at 4 o'clock when we brought in developers to address the issue of the desert that's going on in 635.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. My name is David Haley. I serve in this community in different capacities, precinct committeeman, state legislator, BPU, board member. But first and foremost, and I haven't addressed this commission before, a little nervous being here, believe it or not, because of the rising concern that I feel that we've seen in the abilities to address issues that affect this entire community. I've served in elected capacity, I think, longer than anyone else in Wyandotte County. The good people of this county have favored me with their votes as they have each of you. And what I've tried to do wherever I can, gentlemen, ladies, is to find consensus to address the targeted areas of concern that will make us all a stronger, better county. I'm concerned that that friction somehow, some way, is deteriorating from the fabric of Wyandotte County. Which
1
all
minute
of us love.
remaining.
And inside of that, we find some means by which the areas that are often neglected could somehow be lifted high. The high tide should lift all boats. I've participated in directly the development of part of our community, that being Village West. I was key, as some of you know, in seeing some of the development go there. It is time, gentlemen, ladies, please, to find a way to bridge whatever differences that we have, to find ways for the rest of our county to see prosperity. Economic development and growth should inure to every corner, and each of you has the ability to make that happen. I, David Haley, your humble and obedient servant, ask you to please, on behalf of the people of this county, find a way to bridge those differences and to make it so.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. My name is Darrell Hall, 2314 North 82nd Terrace. And I'm just coming before you as one of the people, and just wanting to know if you have still heard our voice. It seemed like you all did, and we're glad we have a good team here to represent us as our voice. And we've had issues of like the pilot program with BPU, and issues with high property taxes, the things that affect us. And we see that you're addressing many other things. And I don't want to judge we'll be judged by our fruit, but I don't want to judge the fruit too early before it's right, because I know you've all come together to work as a team. So I want to give you a
1
chance
minute
for
remaining.
that, like we would want you to give others. So I'm not sure if, are all of you all full-time to this county, or do you all have jobs or other issue, other interest as well as, just as I've heard you against Miss Lee, concerned about her time spent, and none of you have time to spend totally just on this. So just want to know if you still hear our voice like you did when you were running your campaigns. It seemed like you did then. So we just want to address some of the issues that we have, expressed to you as our voice. So thank you. We're counting on you.
Mayor, we have Elnora Jefferson online with her hand raised.
Proceed, Ms. Jefferson. What's your name and address?
Thank you very much, Mayor. And good evening to Mayor and the Commission. I'm speaking tonight to let the Commission, the elected officials and staff know that the 2022 Brownfields Conference is going to be held in August in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Now, maybe some of you have attended, but for those who have not, it is an excellent opportunity to learn about brownfields reclamation and climate control, as well as information on the infrastructure bill. So what I'm saying tonight is to let you know that, and you could probably find out more information from either through the Economic Development Department or by simply Googling Brownfields Coalition Travel and Training. They're in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Thank you.
We have Karen Daniels online. Ms. Daniels?
Yes, thank you. Karen Daniels, 3005 Oakland Avenue, Kansas City, Kansas. Since 2017, I've been trying to bring awareness to Boston Daniels Park on 8th and Quindaro. I've always been told by Parks and Rec that there was never any funds in the budget to improve his park. I just want to bring attention to his park and see and ask that the commissioners please help get Boston Daniels Park the much needed improvements that it needs. He was a servant of Kansas City for 25 years as the first Black chief of police. And I'm just want to keep his park, his memory alive. So please consider improving Boston Daniels Park. Thank you.
All right, this will be the last call. Any other comments in the audience? Okay. Thank you for those comments. Again, those are valuable comments. One of the commitments I made to residents that know me is we value your input. That's how we get better. Let us know how we're doing, how we're measuring up, not just who we are as a commission and a mayor, but who we should be to better serve you as your public servant. So thank you for all the comments that are made. And thank you for those of you that had the courage to come forward and really make your voice and the interest that you have to better Wyandotte County known. So thank you so much. Before I close the mayor's agenda, I just want to send out a formal apology to all our residents and to those individuals that had signed up over a long process of probably about 2 to 3 months to come forward for a meeting at 4 o'clock to really address some of the issues that were important, which really is east of 635. The disinvested, disenfranchised areas of our community have far too long been left out. And my community development liaison, Lavert Murray, really worked hard to try and bring a vision together of individuals that wanted to share their vision on what it would look like for a redeveloped, reinvigorated east of 635. And some say, what is that, Mayor? Well, what we've identified is the area of 55th Street in between State and I-70 going east. And then you talk about the Northeast, which is truly one of those areas that have been left out in the minds of so many, disenfranchised. The economic segregation that I call has been unacceptable. So that's a true area that needs our attention, especially when you talk about the land bank properties that are there. And some of probably the best land and most valuable land that I think anywhere you can find in the metropolitan area. Then you get into our downtown, Armadale, Northern Rosedale, as well as Argentine, those areas as well is what has been identified by Lavert Murray as an area of interest. And then he brought these developers together. I'm going to give Lavert, Mr. Murray, just a few minutes to just go into what we're going to see tonight and then what you can expect moving forward, because we still want to move and bring these individuals back to the public. They worked hard with presentations. Folks from out of town had planned to come into town, as well as some key developers that had really spent a lot of time and effort to make that presentation tonight. But unfortunately, it's going to be pushed back, and I'll let Mr. Murray describe what that process.
I'm up UPS. They close at 8.
Oh, okay.
So
Well,
that's all that.
I'm making you some chili.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Lavert Murray, Chief Economic Development Advisor. Today, we had it planned at 4 o'clock, a presentation on the part of several developers who have shown interest in developing specific neighborhoods and areas east of 55th Street. And it didn't just stop at within the Northeast community. It included Rosedale, Armadale, and Argentine as well. But we had several developers prepared to present to you proposals and ideas for the development of these areas we've identified. I do want to say that because this meeting was canceled, we've spoken with all of the developers. They have agreed to come back. So we are going to work with you, the community, with the commission, and reschedule these presentations. The presentations we're going to start with a visual of what has taken place in Omaha, Nebraska, undertaken by a community agency called 75 North. We believe that they have found the way to revitalize distressed urban communities with primarily private funding. But of course, we know that there are infrastructure needs that you, the commission, will need to invest and make these developments happen. And so these developers are prepared to express to you what those needs are as well. I will tell you that they did submit some exciting proposals today, and we're holding those proposals until we make that presentation again to you, the Unified Government Commission, and the public. And the developers remain extremely excited. These were majority developers as well as minority developers, and it was a great number of them. My concern was how we would build in enough time for you to hear all of those developers. And of course, we will continue to work to make that happen. So again, the developers have committed to return. We will work with everyone to make sure there is timely planning to make that happen so that the community can hear the potential and the possibilities within those areas east of 55th Street, east of 635.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you. Again, this vision that that was brought forward from these developers, it's trying to bring about hope for folks that for far too long, in my opinion, that really haven't had a lot of hope in the disenfranchised area, and really trying to visualize working with our commission, working with our staff, that shared vision on how we turn those hopes into realities in these disenfranchised areas of our community. And I believe that Mr. Haley said it perfectly. We don't want to negate or overlook the development that has gone out west in our community. We want to continue to build upon that, and we want to continue to support that. But then we also need to look east and see, because we believe that those developments offer a unique opportunity for Wyandotte County to really become something great, not just in the metro area, but something of a success story throughout this country. A reinvigorated major player where this would be the first choice of anybody looking for somewhere to live, work, and raise a family. And we want to anchor people right here in Wyandotte County, in all parts of Wyandotte County. You shouldn't have to see too much of a divergence when you go east to western Wyandotte County. And some of you have heard me say that. And I'm really passionate about that. And we're at a crossroads where we have an opportunity working with this commission, working with you, the community, and a really just anxious staff to really find solutions to some of these real problems that we know affect the lives of real people every day. So we're optimistic, we're excited, and so we're looking forward to bringing about those developers. Again, I want to send a sincere apology to those developers and to Wyandotte County and anybody that came expecting to hear that presentation, because I know the word had gone out, and some were disappointed in those messages that got back. It was a conflict of interest between some of the scheduling with some of our commissioners, no fault of Mr. Murray's, but we just didn't have the numbers to really have a quorum to be able to move the meeting forward according to the Unified Government Rules of Procedure. So again, we apologize, and please stay tuned, look forward, and we're hopeful that good things will come of what we see as we move forward throughout the months and the days to come. So thank you. I will close the public comment at this time. Item 2, presentation, will be the county administrator search process. I just want to talk real briefly about that. I don't know if there's a PowerPoint. All right. As they get that ready, I just want to say that I made a commitment after it was brought to my attention by the commission that they would like me to start a search. And as a result of that request, our interim county administrator made a decision. It was not solicited to remove herself being in that running, and requested of me to honor the request of this commission and to start a national search. And so I made that commitment, and that commitment involved me ensuring this commission and the community that the search would be timely, it'd be transparent, it'd be thorough and inclusive. And what that means in a nutshell is this is going to be a community-driven process. It's going to be one that's going to involve a variety of stakeholders. And you might say, who are those stakeholders? It's going to involve, number one, our commission. They have to have a voice. I want them to have a voice. We have to build this relationship and this strong partnership to make sure that we have the right administrator that can provide the right governance and the leadership in Wyandotte County to take us to the next level of where we need to be, as well as our employees. Our greatest asset within the unified government are our employees. We want them to have a voice. We want them to know that we really value what they think. We want their input to really resonate as well with our commission, as well as myself. And what we're looking for, we want to know what they see as being a leader, what they see as being somebody that can take this organization from being just a good organization to a great organization, as well as you, the community. We're going to be seeking input from the community as well on what they would like to see in a county administrator as well. So when I talk about timely, here we are today. What you can expect is that we will select a firm. We hope to have that firm selected and in place by middle of next month, July. Transparent, there's going to be an RFP process. It's not going to be one of these things where I just pick somebody. It is going to be an RFP process to make sure that we're getting the right consultant to come forward. And it's going to be an open process when you talk about the process and the search. It's going to be thorough. You just want to make sure that we have the best candidates brought forward, and just beyond the minor qualifications of what type of qualifications, education, experience, and intangibles, we want to make sure that the right fit for the unified government, and not just for the unified government, but for this community in Wyandotte County. And again, it's going to be inclusive, and I talked about that, involving both this commission, the community, as well as our employees here. There will be a selection committee that will aid in this process. And so those are some of the things that you can expect as we move through trying to get to the point to where we have that candidate for consideration. And so I'm going to continue to update this community, this commission, and all our staff here about the ongoing progress. And that's a commitment I made. I want this to be transparent. I don't want there to be any question about how we're doing things, because really, I've said this before in a variety of ways. I'm not your mayor because it's about me. It never was, it never has been, and it never will be. It's about this community, and it's about what I can do to bring forward what's best for Wyandotte County in a way that's community driven. And I got to say it again, I've got to work, and I'm committed to working with our commission. I've got to work with our commission, and I mean that with all sincerity. We have got to come together as a commission and do what's right for the people. I've heard that over the months, I guess, with these open inputs. I've heard it out in the community. And I can tell you, this community wants us to come together, set aside whatever differences we may have, and do what is right for Wyandotte County, because that's what's important. Some of you heard me say I'm not a politician, and some have asked me, what does that mean? That means I'm not here to play games. I don't want anything. I don't need anything. I'm retired. I'm here because the people asked me to be here. If you could hold your applause, please. I was asked to be here, not because I had to be, because I wanted to be here, because I too share in the belief that we can create a great Wyandotte County together, not by myself. I can't do this by myself. And I've said that over and over again. We have to come together and do what's best for Wyandotte County. I haven't said a lot about some of these inputs, but I'm going to say it tonight. And I share it. Whatever differences, whatever, we have got to set it aside. Politics as usual has to stop. We've got people's lives in our hands, and the livelihood of Wyandotte County is at stake. It's not a game for me. And it's not politics for me in the sense that some people would think it is. I'm here because I truly care about this community. And when I hear people and the desperation in their voices, when they talk about high taxes, when they talk about their utilities, when they talk about the disinvestment, when they talk about the bureaucracy, when they talk about politics being played, I ran because I joined this community in saying enough of the buffoonery that we've seen over the years. We have got to move Wyandotte County forward. And I'm not here to say that in a disrespectful way, but it hurts me to see what is going on and what has been going on. And some people forget I worked here for 32 years. I know and I've seen things that have been disturbing. Just working out in this community. But I want to better Wyandotte County, and we have a real opportunity. So I challenge this community to support not just this mayor, but this commission and our administrator and our staff. I ask you to please get engaged and realize and wake up to what is going on in this unified government and the decisions that are being made, because they shouldn't be being made for you. They should be being made with you. I ask this commission to please work with me, because I'm willing to work with you. I have to. The community, the success of every person that calls Wyandotte County home or that wants to call Wyandotte depends on what we can do together. I'm not asking you to go to any of my family reunions, but as professionals, the elected officials that are supposed to be moving this county forward in a direction that can lift, as Senator Haley said, all boats, where everybody that wants to have an opportunity to work hard because they want better, not just for themselves, but for this community. They want to have an opportunity for success. Let's work to give it to them. And as you heard me say, let's work together to make Wyandotte County a great and safe place to live, work, and raise a family. And finding an administrator is just the first step. We've got a lot of work to do because there are a lot of problems. And as we go into the coming months and our administrator begins to reveal some of the audit results, this community, this commission, and this Kansas City region is going to see the hard work that Wyandotte County has ahead of it. And we've really got to dig in, work hard to overcome some of these major challenges and issues that really affect us all. People's lives depend on it. So enough of that, but thank you. That takes us to the regular consent agenda. Does any member of the commission or county administrator wish to set aside any item on the regular consent agenda? If any item is set aside, all items on the regular consent agenda will be voted on by one vote. I'm sorry. I'll entertain a motion for approval of the regular consent agenda if there's nothing set aside. Clerk? Were there any set asides that you're aware of?
No, Mayor.
Okay. I want to turn a motion for approval of the regular consent agenda.
Johnson move for approval as submitted.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Mayor,
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I need a second and we'll get to discussion.
question, yes.
Yeah, is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? And I believe that we have Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to clarify, I believe earlier at the meeting, there was a notice that several items were removed. So before the vote was taken, just wanted to make sure we know what is now still on the agenda. That's the only question.
Clerk, can you read those items, please?
The items that were removed this evening were from the standing committee agenda. That was item number 2, ordinance adopting the Building and Safety Code 1. Item number 3, ordinance adopting the 2018 Life Safety Code and International Fire Code. And item number 4, ordinance adopting the 2018 International Residential Code. Again, those were on the standing committee agenda.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Roll call, McKiernan,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane, Stites,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
The vote is 7-0. The motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have our standing committee agenda. It's going to be a budget revision in excess of $50,000 for constructions of the new Turner Fire Station. This item was fast-tracked from the Economic Development and Finance Standing Committee, which occurred on Monday, June 6th, chaired by Commissioner Burrows. I ask Commissioner Burrows to make some opening remarks.
Thank you, Mayor. The subcommittee chose to advance this to the full commission with unanimous support. This approval of this project will allow a transfer to the city cash-funded capital projects fund and allow the Turner, it affects the quartermaster's budget, but it will also allow the Turner Fire Station to move forward because of the hit on inflation and building materials. So I would ask that the commission give this strong support.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do any commissioners have any comments?
Stites District 7, make a motion to approve as submitted.
Okay, I got a motion.
McKiernan, District 2, second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Roll call, McKiernan,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane, Stites,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
The vote is 7-0. The motion carries.
And just for a note of information, item 2, 3, and 4 per the blue sheet will be added on our June 30th commission agenda. Takes us to our next item number 5, which is Safe and Welcoming Act to comply with House Bill 2717 as imposed by the state of Kansas. Our next item is an amendment to our Safe and Welcoming Act due to changes at that state level. I'll ask Ms. Myers with our legal staff to make some opening comments.
Good evening. I am Casey Meyer with the legal department. And as you know, and I think there's a very short PowerPoint. Thank you. Thank you. As you know, House Bill 2717 was passed by the state legislature and approved by Laura Kelly in April of this year. Because of that, any conflicts between that House bill and the Safe and Welcoming Act are void. Several sections in our current ordinance conflict with the House bill. So what you have in front of you is a proposed draft with red lines which comply with state law. And additionally, I included some changes that I wanted to address based on some commission comments at the last full commission. In addition, I believe there is some public comments or at least some people that called in and requested that the municipal ID be changed to a community ID. So the name of it was changed throughout the act as well. Next slide. Thank you very much. So really, all I want to focus on here is in what you guys have, the draft you have, you see the red lines. The red lines are what address the conflicts in the bill. And then the yellow highlights address the additional optional changes based on some of your full commission comments. So I believe there is a request to add an expiration term, which I included. When I researched this, the cities that have municipal IDs, it really ranges anywhere from 2 to 5 years. Several cities have expiration terms of 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. It kind of varies. Most of the cities that had a 2-year expiration term were similar in, if you recall, the documents that we required to prove residency or identity. It was similar in length. So that's why I chose the 2-year expiration term. But legally, that's kind of a policy issue, and that's up to you. I also reorganized the section layouts just to clean it up a little bit so that it was easier to understand what sections addressed what. I also added section 18165C, which includes some cardholder responsibilities, which will include a notification if their name changes or if their address changes, they need to get a new card so that the information on the card is accurate. And also the ability to suspend or revoke the card if there are any violations of the article. Additionally, in 18165D, we added the requirement for the program administrator to provide an annual report to the commission or upon request. And also added the option for the unified government to conduct audits of the program as needed, because I do remember at full commission, there was a request for an audit process, which now it's in the ordinance. So my presentation is very short. That is the proposed draft you have in front of you. I understand Ms. Ansell's request from the Safe and Welcoming Coalition regarding the name change. There's nothing illegal about that, obviously. So if the commission wanted to approve a name change, we would just need a motion to amend, and then we could address that.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Casey, I want to thank you along with the remainder of our staff, also Misty Brown, for the work that you all have put into this for quite some time. And I want to say to the community and certainly to the coalition that has worked so hard with this commission, how disappointed I am in the actions that have taken place down the highway and in our legislature. But here we are, and we've had to make by law, we have to make some revisions. I thank you for making the first adjustment to the naming of this to the community ID. I think I saw that's already been taking place throughout the document.
That's correct.
Okay. So the only issue at hand is whether or not we want to have a expiration date that is either 2 years or up to 5 years as the coalition has requested.
That's correct.
I
Or
do-
the name change.
I have notation from Commissioner Bynum that I think she's good with the extending it. Matter of fact, before this is for the record, I want to make sure, Van, take that off the record because I don't see that for sure. She's open to a concept longer than 2 years. And so I agree with that. And, if the commission would so approve it, I don't mind going out as long as 5 years as requested by the coalition.
Are there any comments, questions? Commissioner King?
All right. Did staff recommend 2 years?
Based on my research, it was anywhere between 2 and 5 years. If you recall how in the ID, the section which includes the list of ways to prove your residency and identity, our list is fairly broad. And in the cities in which they kind of had the broader list, they usually had an expiration term of 2 years. So that is why I made that recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Davis?
Thank you, Mayor. Just quick question. when do we have to make a final decision on this? Or is this just kind of legal trying to make sure that we're being on top of it?
So July 1st is the date that the statute comes in action. So July 1st would be our deadline.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Stites.
Stites, District 7. So one of the questions, so what other cities have that broad list, and I mean cities within Kansas, have that broad list that you're talking about that would limit it or the minimum of 2 years?
Okay, so no other cities in Kansas
So
have a community ID program.
Nobody in Kansas.
Nobody in Kansas.
Okay. And then if you could go back to the presentation, I had a question about that one, please. Number 3, where it said ability to suspend or revoke card for violations of article.
Of the act, correct. So
What
it's
exactly
just
is that?
another way to safeguard and make the card more reliable. So it's if a card holder violates any part of the act, then it provides an avenue to revoke their ability to hold a municipal ID card.
Could you give me an example of a card holder violating the act?
Well, for example, if they were found to use a false or fraudulent document in order to obtain the card in the first place, or if they, if you see in the red line section, I added all the language for what the actual crimes are, which is included in House Bill 2717. Of course, any violation of that would be a violation of the act, so then we could revoke or suspend your ability to ever obtain a municipal ID card.
So it doesn't have anything to do with a violation like out on the streets. I mean, a traffic stop.
Correct,
Or
no.
any type of violation like that.
No.
Right, okay. I am in support of if we're going to do this, which 2 years would be where I'm at. But again, there's no other city in Kansas that is doing this, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other discussion or comments? Okay, again, I share in the sentiments of Commissioner Johnson, along with the coalition that I work with, just the disappointment, but that we're even here today having this discussion after so long, so much work, so much time put in by so many people in our community. So I got one more question from Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to ask council, or maybe one of my other colleagues who was shepherding this through some of the standing committees. It's already been stated that no one else in the state of Kansas has anything like this. How difficult would it be if we went forward with 2 years to come back at the end of the 2-year period to see how this actually works and come back and adjust it to like 3 years, 5 years?
That would be very easy. That would not be hard at all.
So if we went with the 2 years just to see how things work to vet the system, we could come back and amend that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to ask.
Commissioner King.
I can't tell if my mic's on or not. When we've done this with other projects where we let them go for 2 years, then they come back and revisit. And it's a lot of things we've done to do that, and then give them 3 or 5 years if they've done everything the way they were supposed to do. And I think at this match, we're the only one doing it. We don't know if it's going to work or not. So I would think that we would go with 2 years, have them come back, give us another presentation and adjust accordingly. And I guess that's a motion.
Okay. Thank you for your motion, Commissioner King. We have a motion to stick at 2 years has been presented from the recommendation from staff, I take it? Is that the recommendation?
Yes.
Legal? Okay. We got another question, Commissioner Stites.
Commissioner Stites, District 7. So is this just a motion on the time or all the changes?
That's everything that you've done puts us in line with the state, right?
That's correct.
Right. And then the only thing that we've added was the 2-year adjustment, correct?
Well, we added the expiration term, which is a 2-year adjustment, the ability to audit, and then the additional cardholder responsibilities just to update their card if they change name, change address. So those were all optional things that I included based on comments at full commission.
Well, I
Those
would-
are not required, obviously. by the
No, but
statute.
I like what you do. Could you repeat the last part about audit and the rest of it?
The 3 sections that I audited were the 2-year expiration term, the ability to audit the program administrator to make sure that they're following the rules. And then the third thing is the cardholder responsibilities where they have to update, if they change name, change address, they have to report that and get a new card.
So can I go ahead and finish?
Commissioner Stites.
Okay. So changing the name, tell me the name again, please.
I believe Ms. Ansel suggested
That's not in our proposal.
Wyandotte County Community ID Act. I don't know if you would want it Unified Government Community ID Act, whatever. That would,
Well, I mean, I think we probably need to decide that before we vote,
mhm.
because I'm not okay with it being Wyandotte County, because Bonner Springs and Edwardsville have not been consulted on this, and they are part of Wyandotte County. So if it was going to be anything, it would be Kansas City, Kansas Community ID, not Bonner Springs and not Edwardsville.
Commissioner Johnson.
I think what I see in the documentation is it just says Community Act. I mean, Community ID versus Wyandotte County. Is
Okay.
clarify that one way.
Community ID Act.
Yeah, so it just says community. It does not refer to Wyandotte County. It just says Community ID.
Mayor, I think there's a little confusion between the use of the term community ID card that was changed and the actual name of the act, which is in the heading. And I think there was a request from some members of the public to simply change the name of the act. But the community ID card has been changed in the version that you're looking at here. So changing the name of the act itself will have no legal purpose, no legal change. No, it won't have any effect. It's just simply how we refer to it.
Commissioner Stites.
The name of the card is a community ID card.
Okay, I'm saying I would like for it to say the Kansas City, Kansas identification card.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Johnson.
To the name of the act itself, it says that it's a safe and welcoming city act. And what has been asked is that it would be changed to the Wyandotte Community Act, Community ID Act. And there's some pushback on this commission with regard to the Wyandotte County portion of that. So would it make sense to call it then the Kansas City, Kansas Community ID Act? Would that be acceptable?
Thank you. I'll bring that up here shortly, Commissioner. Thank you. Commissioner Burrows.
Thank you, Mayor. I think there has been just a little confusion in what we're looking at. The municipal ID was not to be utilized by state law, and it now has become the community ID. And that's the change there. The act itself, as stated by Commissioner Johnson, does need a name change if the community wants that name change to be representative of the word community. Then it was mentioned by Commissioner Stites that it be the Kansas City, Kansas Community ID Act. I think the main issue that we're struggling with here is, and I think we've almost come to terms, and that's the time frame, the 2-year time frame. And I think that really puts into play the community that has been asking for this to come forward in a hurried process to get this ID up and running instead of waiting over a period of 5 years. And I do strongly support the fact that they can come back before us and give us a chance to streamline and or modify the act. We'll find some bumps in it somewhere, I'm sure, because no ordinance, no resolution, and no law is perfect. So we'll have a chance to come back in 2 years and address it. So this reads pretty simply, and I commend you for making the changes that you've made and getting us in line with the state requirements of 2717. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Davis? Okay. Okay, well, again, to wrap up my comments, it looks like we have a motion from Commissioner Kane for the 2 years, or just the amendment and what's been brought forward by legal staff as a recommendation to this commission for the 2 years as it's been presented from legal for consideration. I couple that with the name change as well. I believe that there was a motion to have the name changed at the request from a stakeholder in the community from what was presented and away from the suggestion of Wyandotte County Community ID Act to KCK Community ID Act. There was also an initial indication from Commissioner Johnson for 5 years. And then there was also mention of a staggered from the 2 years to get up to the 5 years, which might be mute depending. So I think the issue is at hand. I've got a motion for the 2 years and what's presented from council to this commission as it has been presented for consideration, which I have a motion from Commissioner Kane without the name change. But we'll go through that motion first. Stand by. Commissioner Burrows.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, I think if we just voted for the act initially, what legal has presented, and then the second motion can be the name change to the act, because it was presented to us with the 2 years and everything else was acceptable except for the time, the name of the act, and we can handle that with the second motion. Unless you want to combine them all in one motion, Mayor, at least we'll know what we're voting for if we vote for the 2 years as presented by council for the entire act, and then turn around and vote for the name change on the act, if that's acceptable. Wait to be recognized.
I'll take you up on that, Commissioner Burrows. And here's what we'll do. Commissioner Kane, would you like to amend that 2 years with the name change, Kansas Community ID Act? Would you like to amend that?
Yes.
Okay. Is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
All right. I got a motion to amend his original motion to 2 years as been presented with the name change of the Kansas Community ID Act. Do I have a question from Commissioner Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question and then a comment. For this item, will there be public comment?
There was no public comment. It's been through the standing committee. This is just for commission action.
Okay, thank you so much, Mayor. And my comment will be this. Commissioner Bynum and Commissioner Ramirez were also part of the group of commissioners that were a part of bringing this forward. I think it would be fair for us to delay this until our next full commission meeting. That way, for public safety and public works, they can come up with some sort of compromise, work with the coalition, and then we can fast track it from that standing committee meeting to that June 30th full commission meeting.
Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to second the motion. This has gone through the standing committee process. So what we're doing tonight, we recognize the desire to change the name. I think that's been accounted for. It's already been in the version we're voting on the 2 years. And I think the only question I would have would well, it expires in 2 years, but we can take this up again. And if you want to make it longer, a longer period of time, that can be done at that time. So I second Commissioner Kane's motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. How many votes does it take to approve this as it stands? Legal, can you give us some guidance on that?
Yes, Commissioner, 6 votes.
Thank you.
Okay, I do have a motion that needs to be resolved. Is there a second? Okay, Commissioner Townsend did second that. So we have a motion and a second. Clerk, roll call, please.
Roll call. McKiernan.
Aye.
Johnson.
No.
Kane. Stites.
No.
Davis.
No.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
The vote is 4-3, Mayor. Well, it wouldn't matter, would it? Nope. So the motion fails.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have 2 items under the administrator's agenda.
Wait,
One second. So
Mayor,
Hold on. Stand by just for a second. I've got one more question from Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want clarity on where we go from here with this now.
the motion to approve.
If someone would like to make a motion to bring it back to the next meeting or take it back to standing committee, I believe we can do that, but stand by. Commissioner Johnson.
Mayor, I'm waiting to hear from legal to give us guidance.
I'm going to go refer to legal and some of the legal implications of this vote, and just bring us up to speed on our obligation. And this is more in line of basically bringing the unified government in compliance with state law as a result of the vote. So legal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, procedurally, we had a motion to approve with certain modifications that failed, but this is still an active item because there's not been a binding either approval or denial of the item before us. Second of all, in terms of the timing, I just want to remind the commission, the state law goes into effect July 1st. If we were to hold this over until the next meeting, June 30th, it takes a week to publish an ordinance. So we would have a week where we have potentially are out of compliance. It would be preferable to resolve the matter tonight if the commission sees fit.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. With that being said, I'd like to make a motion for all the changes that we would have made thus far with regard to the name of the act, the name of the card, as well as I'd like to go back to the 5-year expiration date. I'd like to make that motion.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion to say, is there any discussion? Commissioner Burrows.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, this has been a point of concern for this community for a number of years. And I know the results of what happened at the Capitol was due to, I think, a lot of miscommunication in the community. And there are some that want to say differently. But you just heard that Bonner Springs and Edwardsville had some concerns, but yet there are those deniers that say that's not the case. You have commissioners that are really trying to find a way to help here. And it took Topeka to guide us. And we weren't the only county in the state that had legislation and repealed on the local level. There was Roland Park was impacted from this. And we didn't learn from Roland Park to come forward with the same language they had to move our ordinance forward. Now, I understand this is a very important issue, but we want to get this right so we don't have to have the state interfere once again. And that is what we are trying to do. So I would ask the members of this community to understand that there is not a difference of opinion on the municipal ID. But now all of a sudden we're getting into the criteria of the municipal ID again. And that's the name change. And then we're going to talk about the years. We have come a long way. I would ask your patience. You have 3 commissioners that are not here this evening that were strong advocates of your safe and welcoming. And I agree, they should probably have an opportunity to speak to this evening. However, they knew this was on the agenda, and I can't explain to you why they chose not to be here or what caused their absence this evening. But I will state that this issue is important to a number of people in our community. We want to get it right. So please, by all means, be patient enough. You found out that others are watching. And we just came through a process that divided this community straight down the middle. And it is going to be 12 years possibly that we're going to be dealing with a divided community due to redistricting. And this issue played into that issue, whether you want to believe it or not. So as a public servant and as an advocate for this community, I would ask, please be patient and understanding that we are trying to get this right. Thank you, Mayor.
Commissioner Johnson, you had a motion. Well, you have a question as well. Go ahead.
I'll tell you what, in the interest of trying to bring about an interest, to bring this to a close with my commissioners, how about we meet somewhere in the middle and go at 3 years on the expiration date? It's not what everybody is wanting, but I think if we can get it over the hump, if I can get a second to that and we can vote, Mayor, I think maybe we can get
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Townsend.
Well, I commend Commissioner Johnson for the Solomon move, because that was going to be my recommendation. I think 2 years was reasonable, given this is the first statute or ordinance like it in the city. So I thought 5 years the first time would be a bit much, but I think 3 is fair, and I think we should just move on so that we are in compliance with the state by the time this goes into effect and not leave that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any further discussion? Just for clarity for those watching, we had an original motion to deny an amendment request to what was presented by our staff for consideration. But the matter still persists on the original proposal that has been brought forward. So now, to hopefully resolve this issue, a motion has been made by Commissioner Johnson and a second, I believe, by Commissioner Davis for 3 years, and to move the item that has been presented as recommended. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call. Oh, right. Hold on. Commissioner Townsend.
For clarity, does this include the name change proposed? Thank you.
Any discussion? I believe your comment was it does include the name change? Okay. Okay, I just want to be sure for that. I don't want to speak for Commissioner Johnson or Davis. If you could just clarify your motion again, Commissioner Johnson.
Yes, that the act be changed to the Kansas City, Kansas Community Act. And that the Community ID Act, and that the ID be called the Community ID instead of Municipal ID. And that we have an expiration date of 3 years versus 2 years.
I second that, Mayor.
I have a motion and a second, and I have a question from Commissioner Stites.
Again, what's the ID called?
The Community ID.
It's not called the Kansas City, Kansas Community
The
ID?
act is called the Kansas City,
Okay.
Kansas Community Act ID, Community ID Act, rather.
Okay, important discussion. As Commissioner Burrows noted, is there any further questions or discussion by this body? All right, I have a motion and second. No further discussion. Clerk, roll call, please.
Roll call, McKiernan,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Stites,
No.
Davis,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
The vote is 6-1. The motion carries.
Thank you. This takes us to the administrator's agenda, and our first item is a presentation from the International Association of Firefighters, our KCK Fire Department, regarding options for fire station number 15. This was something that was brought forward at the request of the Fairfax Industrial District and a lot of the businesses that they represent, as well as some of those residents that live in the Northeast. Just some context, myself, Commissioner Kane, Commissioner Bynum, members from the firefighters union as well as command took a tour of that facility, which appears to be in really good shape. They were tasked and given a call to action to bring forth options on how, if at all, this commission to consider to either open, maintain it as it is, or to not open that facility. So we're looking forward to seeing what has been considered. So I'd like to turn this over to our administrator and lead us into this presentation.
Good afternoon. Cheryl Harrison Lee, Interim County Administrator. As the mayor indicated, the discussion tonight is on the potential reopening of the fire station. We have KCK Fire Department staff here, as well as IAFF, who will make presentations. They will give you some insight on options for your feedback. At today's ribbon cutting for the Fairfax Tower, business community also expressed some interest in seeing the reopening of the fire station. And so we're seeking your direction tonight as we continue to advance through the budget process. And with that, I'll call forward the representative from the IAFF.
Good evening, Mayor Garner, Commissioners, Administrator Harrison Lee. My name is JJ Sima. I'm the President of the International Association of Firefighters, Local 64. I have with me as well tonight, Bob Wing, Secretary Treasurer of the Tri-County Labor Council, to present with me. I want to thank you for the opportunity to meet with you tonight and discuss the possible reopening of Fire Station 15 in the Fairfax District. We have a short presentation for you, which will give a brief history, where we are currently, the need we see to restore service in the district, and a joint recommendation from our two organizations as to how to accomplish this. Slide. Over the last 30 years, Kansas City, Kansas, and Wyandotte County has experienced significant growth, both residentially and commercially, throughout our community. There is an ongoing and ever-evolving need for fire and EMS service in multiple areas of our community. This has resulted in a number of conversations and studies brought forth in an effort to address future fire service in Kansas City, Kansas. Named are a few on this slide. The Facets Independent Consultant Study was brought in, the IAFF GIS response analysis requested by Local 64 through our international offices, in addition to an independent ISO GIS analysis in 2011, 2012. Each of these studies identified areas of deficiency in Piper and other areas in our community. Approximately 6 years ago, the new Piper Fire Station number 12 was approved by the Unified Government Commission. Slide, please. As Station 12 neared completion, the conversation began about how to accomplish staffing of the fire station. The intent for opening of Station 12 was never intended to be at the expense of another area in the community. Ultimately, Pumper 15 in the Fairfax area was identified as the existing apparatus to relocate. The criteria used to identify Pumper 15 was it had the lowest annual call volume apparatus in our fleet. We do not believe call volume is a valid criteria to utilize to identify need for fire service. At the same time, EMS 19 in the Midtown area was also identified for relocation to the new Piper Fire Station. The same criteria was not used, as it was the third busiest EMS unit in the city at the time. Appropriate criteria with regards to apparatus and station locations and deployment of resources would be hazard risk analysis, response time analysis, and consideration of safety standards. IAFF and independent ISO analysis with consideration of these criteria not only identified the Piper area as a need for coverage, but made no recommendation for closure or relocation in the Fairfax area. Slide, please. Station 5 at 910 Quindaro was identified by the fire department to provide Fairfax coverage. Housed at Station 5 is Pumper 5 and EMS 5. Slide, please. In the next two slides, in a presentation provided by the fire department in April of 2020, the case was made for the same or faster response times as you can see. We do not believe response time data will reflect such. Fairfax has limited access points and numerous rail crossings, creating a number of response challenges for fire apparatus to enter the district. It was also stated at that time that the fire department monitors rail crossings for trains, preventing the blocking of access by fire apparatus. We are not aware at this time or at any time of any KCKFD apparatus which monitor train activity. As you'll see, it was stated that the weight of the response would become greater. Fire Station 5 with Pumper 5 would be enhanced to 4 firefighters. Pumper 9 and Pumper 11 responding Fairfax companies would be enhanced to 4 firefighters. To this day, Pumper 5 was increased from 3 firefighter staffing to 4, with the removal of the 4th firefighter from the Pumper 8 Old Piper Fire Station, which to our knowledge was never discussed. The firefighter was transferred, not physically the individual, but the staffing position was transferred. Pumper 9 and Pumper 11 are still running to this day with 3 firefighters regularly. Slide, please. In this slide, during the discussion for the safer application, in an effort to convert 6 of our 3 firefighter pumpers to 4 firefighter pumpers, the grant which was awarded and received. However, this has not been accomplished. The proposal of the fire department in April of 2020 was to increase from 1 4 firefighter pumper to 7 4 firefighter pumpers. Today, we still have 1 4 firefighter pumper. Slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. The proposed closure of Station 15 was opposed by Local 64, Tri-County Labor Council, the Fairfax Industrial Association, and numerous other interested parties. The need in the Fairfax district is high. 10,000 people go to work down there. 20 million tax dollars are generated from the district, and $5 billion in property value is in the district. The volatility and risk is high. As you'll see from this map from the IAFF GIS study, the high risk business industrial concentration in the Northeast, which is high hazard occupancies as defined by the NFPA, is large. NFPA 1710 identifies 3 levels of alarm: low, medium, and high. Low being residential, primarily; medium being standalone commercial, strip mall, garden style apartment; high being explosive plants, refineries, high rises, schools, and hospitals. As you can see, the majority of Fairfax, it's blocked by the slide, by the camera view, but the majority of Fairfax is high hazard occupancies. The response requirement by NFPA 1710 for high hazard occupancy is 43 firefighters in 10 minutes and 10 seconds. Currently, we cannot meet that standard, nor could we meet that standard even prior to the closure of Fairfax Fire Station number 15. Ultimately, the decision was made to close Fairfax Fire Station 15 on the opening of Station 12 in the New Piper area on July 23rd of 2020. In addition to this, there was other additional relocations and reallocation of resources. As we discussed, the 4th firefighter who had staffed Pumper 8 and Old Piper for 30 years was moved to Pumper 5 at Quindaro. The latter at 94th and State became cross-staffed as a secondary apparatus. Cross-staffed versus fully staffed means firefighters staff 2 apparatus. The apparatus of need, they move back and forth from one to the other. Currently, Rescue 6 at 94th and State is staffed full-time. Quint 6, the latter, is staffed part-time, leaving a decrease in the ladder coverage in the western portion of KCK. The closest dedicated ladder after this reallocation and recommissioning is 62nd and State Avenue. This has created extended response times with regards to structure fires, as aerial apparatus responding to the western portion of Kansas City, Kansas have to come from east of 27th Street, either north of I-70 or south of I-70. Slide, please. As you'll see in this map, this is the IASO GIS analysis from 2011. Consistent with the Local 64 GIS analysis, it identified 107th and Hutton Road as the area of need for an additional firehouse, while maintaining the firehouse at Station 15 in the Fairfax district. Slide, please. We understand there's a cost to it, to everything. Going forward, we would encourage the Unified Government and Fire Department to apply for SAFER grants for staffing purposes, beginning in 2023 and beyond. The 2022 SAFER grant was not applied for. The federal government was providing 100% cost for the first 3 years. It is unknown if the local match will remain suspended in 2023 and beyond. We also would encourage the application for assistance for firefighter grants, which are equipment and apparatus grants for the future purchase of fire apparatus in our community. Next slide, please. So we bring forth a joint recommendation, which is a short-term proposal to staff the fire station in Fairfax in the very near future, while further analysis is done for a long-term plan of the fire service in Wyandotte, KCK, Wyandotte County. Our proposal will move no firefighters from their current assignment. Our recommendation will be apparatus relocation only. Currently, at headquarters, Truck 1 cross staffs Rescue 1. Truck 1 would recommission to Station 14 and become Truck 14. Rescue 1 would become fully staffed with 4 members currently assigned, which would meet the national standard. Truck 14's apparatus would recommission to Station 15 and become Truck 15. Truck 15 would be staffed with 4 firefighters, provide water capability to carry and flow water in the area, which meets the national standard, and ladder coverage of 2 100-foot aerial apparatus would be maintained in the northeast portion of the city. Truck 14's crew would remain assigned to 14's fire station and staff the newly commissioned Truck 14. To address issues in western Kansas City, Kansas, we propose moving the platform aerial from Station 6 to Station 12 and staffing with 4 firefighters. It will provide water capability in its territory and provide a dedicated aerial apparatus to the Piper area, which right now we do not have. We would then recommission Pumper 12 to Station 6, which would become Pumper 6. We would staff Pumper 6 with 3 and Rescue 6 currently assigned there with 2, which would run in tandem, both apparatus. The national standard would be met and water availability would be maintained in the area. The 4th suggestion we would make would be that the 4th firefighter that was sent to Pumper 5 would be moved back to Pumper 8 to restore the service as it was prior to the closure of Fairfax Fire Station. This again is a short-term recommendation. We have a written proposal we would like to submit to you that has narrative to go along with it, and we'd be happy to forward that to you in the near future. And at that, I would give this to Bob Wang of Tri-County Labor Council.
Thank you, President Simmons, Mayor, Commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity to address this issue with you all this evening. My presentation as a representative of the Central Labor Council will be brief and to the point. Several commissioners I don't know. I'm not only an elected member of the Labor Council, I serve as President Emeritus of the Firefighters Local here in Kansas City. As the State Firefighters Union, I was a firefighter here in Kansas City, employed for 42 years. So I tell you that tenure of being a firefighter here for that amount of time because every joint committee that has ever been formed by the former city council and the present county commission I have served on that initiated with the former Mayor Steininger in the late 1980s. At no time did the committees that I serve on ever not consider the term potential when we developed response times and station assignments for apparatus and personnel. Here in the Northeast, and Mayor, it's ironic, we're talking about the Northeast again being abandoned. Northeast had a firehouse closed, first firehouse closed in this city for several decades. And we think that should be corrected. Potential was used in the analysis for Piper. Here, Commissioner Kane, when you proposed to build that station out there, it was based on potential. It was based on the potential of Piper that the existing station wasn't adequate to perform what is needed in the community of Piper. and more is needed. But the potential was identified that Piper needed more. As President Simmons said, it was never envisioned that it would impact any other part of the city, specifically the Northeast. When it was considered to staff Station 12, the Rosedale community was considered. Station 10 was considered. But that was proven to be not viable based on its potential, let alone the saber rattling of the business community, the community itself, and the potential of KU Med Center. So here we have two pieces of a puzzle that were identified as the potential being too great. Fire apparatus could not be moved, but Fairfax was identified as not having the potential to support a full-time fire company in Fairfax, such that it has since 1966, when Fairfax was annexed into the city. So I'm confused by the fire department's lack of coming forward and identifying the potential publicly to this and the former commission to keep Fairfax open. That should have been done. But I find it even more interesting, Mayor and Madam Administrator and Commissioners, that in an application for a fire grant for radios. That piece right there. And these are the fire department's words. I give you these because the fire department knows you have to identify potential. This is their grant application. It's on file here in City Hall. I'll provide you copies if you need them, but here's part of what the text of their grant application reads. Kansas City, Kansas encompasses many uniquely different urban, industrial, and suburban communities. The varying communities amplify the vastly different fire and EMS challenges encountered by the Kansas City, Kansas Fire Department, including a wide variety of commercial and industrial hazards, high-rise structures, and obstacles related to a densely populated city. Wyandotte County has a population of 161,000 people, covers 156 square miles. Kansas City, Kansas population is over 152,000 and is the third largest city in the state of Kansas. I underscore, this is the fire department's words. We have a vibrant industrial area with over 120 businesses employing 10,000 people, including General Motors, Kellogg's, Owens Corning, and CertainTeed. 3 pipeline companies in the Fairfax district provide 95% of the Kansas City metro area supply of unleaded gasoline, diesel, and 100% of the jet fuel that supplies KCI. That area was abandoned based on a fire department that did not come forward to you as elected officials. Those 10,000 employees that are working in Fairfax, we represent. They have enjoyed full-time fire EMS coverage in that district based on potential since 1966. I am asking this commission to right the wrong. Take care of the 10,000 employees, the 120 businesses that the fire department identified and abandoned, and publicly said that fire station is not needed in this community. I find that astounding. Mayor, I could go on, but once again, I appreciate the time. I wanted to make some very pointed marks. These people that work down there deserve better. Not only do they work in Fairfax, a lot of them live in this community. A lot of them live in the Northeast. And I've heard tonight how the Northeast has been abandoned. I think this would be the greatest piece of the puzzle in the Northeast that we could start by reopening that fire station and not only giving Fairfax back their coverage. Fairfax covers the northeast part of this city with respect to the neighborhoods. Mayor, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bob. In conclusion, we would be happy to provide you with any documentation you wish. That PowerPoint presentation was a brief synopsis of the studies that have been done over the last 10 to 12 years and the numerous conversations and committee work over the last 10 to 12 years. We would be happy to have detailed conversation with you at any time you would request. We will make ourselves available. And we would stand for questions.
Thank you, President Simmet. Maybe we'll hear from the fire chief at this time, and then we'll get all the questions at once.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Commission, Mr. Mayor, Ms. Administrator. Can you put those slides up? So the fire department was given a task to come up with some options for the commission to consider in terms of reoccupying Station 15. We presented 5 options and they range in price from a lot of money to no money. So if you can go to the next slide, we'll start with that one. These are going to get repetitive after a while, but this one won't be repetitive. So option 1 is to build a new fire station on 7th Street Trafficway to house a pumper 15, an aerial currently pumper 5, and an EMS unit currently EMS 5, and complete the contemplated station consolidation. This will require 17 additional employees apportioned as follows. A 4-member truck, which has 17 personnel, 3 captains, 3 drivers, and 11 firefighters. A 4-member pumper, 17 personnel, same breakdown already employed by the KCKFD. A 2-member EMS unit with 9 personnel, which is already employed by the KCKFD. Next slide, please. The recurrent annual personnel costs at today's dollars, including fringe benefits, are $1.9 million. The one-time cost for new aerial apparatus is $1.4 million. Pumper 5 would be used in its current form. Total apparatus cost is $1.4 million. One-time cost for a new fire station is $11 million today. Total upfront costs $14.3 million. Next slide, please. This meets the NFPA staffing standard. It's an immediate addition to the overall weight of the response. It resolves repair and refurbishment issues in 2 stations simultaneously. It's in a significantly optimized location. It can respond equilaterally in 4 different directions, which we don't have right now. The area response is 100%. It also adds an additional truck or aerial company to our fleet, bringing us to 8. The limitations are, it takes additional time to complete it, and it costs a lot of money. Next slide, please. So can you go back one, please? One more time. Okay, so the recommendation of the fire department would be option 1. That would be the recommendation of the department. Can you please go forward 2 slides? So option 2 is to reoccupy the current Station 15 with a 4-member pumper and an EMS unit. That would require 26 additional employees apportioned as follows. 4-member pumper with 17 personnel, 3 captains, 3 drivers, and 11 firefighters, and a 2-member EMS unit with 9 personnel. Next slide, please. The recurrent annual personnel costs at today's dollars, including fringe benefits, is $2.8 million. One-time cost for a new pumper is $700,000. One-time cost for a new EMS unit is $350,000. Total apparatus costs a little over $1 million. Total upfront cost $3.88 million. Next slide. Advantages and limitations. It meets the NFPA staffing standard. It'll be completed faster, adds an additional pumper, bringing us to 16 instead of 15, adds an additional EMS company, bringing us to 10 instead of 9, does not contemplate new construction. The limitations are it's a suboptimal location. The area response is truncated by 50%. That fire station cannot go anywhere north or east of the current station. Does not resolve and repair refurbishment issues in 2 stations simultaneously, and there's no immediate addition to the overall weight of the response in that area. Next slide, please. The third option is to reoccupy the current Station 15 with a 4-member pumper, 17 personnel again, 3 captains, 3 drivers, 11 firefighters. Next slide, please. Recurrent personnel costs there are $1.9 million. One-time cost for a new pumper. This is where it's getting redundant, $700,000. Total apparatus cost $700,000. Total upfront cost $2.6 million. Next slide, please. The advantages and limitations of this option. Again, it meets the advantages. It meets the NFPA staffing standard. It has attenuated costs. It'll be completed faster. Does not contemplate new construction. Disadvantages or limitations, suboptimal location, again, area of response truncated by 50%. No immediate addition to the overall weight of the response, does not resolve and repair refurbishment issues in 2 stations simultaneously. Next slide, please. Option 4, reoccupy the current Station 15 with a 4-member pumper on overtime. Next slide. 4 members per day on overtime. Annual OT cost in today's dollars, $1.35 million. One-time cost for a pumper, $700,000. Total upfront costs, a little over $2 million. Next slide, please. Advantages and limitations. Meets the NFPA staffing standard. Attenuated costs. Will be completed faster. Does not contemplate new construction. Limitations, suboptimal location. AOR is truncated by 50%. No immediate addition to the overall weight of response, does not resolve and repair refurbishment issues in 2 stations simultaneously. Next slide, please. Option 5, relocate an existing pumper to Station 15. Next slide, please. No additional costs. Last slide, please. It's the lowest cost. These are the advantages, most straightforward to facilitate, does not contemplate new construction. Disadvantages or limitations, it's still a suboptimal location. Doesn't resolve and take care of the issues in 2 stations simultaneously, and no immediate addition to the overall weight of response. That's the end of this presentation.
Okay, Mayor and Commissioners, that completes our presentation and questions at this time from either IAFF or the Chief or his staff.
Thank you, Administrator. If I could have you all come back forward so you at least be available for the mic as well as for these questions. Commissioner Kane, I believe you had a question.
Okay, I want to make a couple of comments. And because it's the history of why we're at here today. In July 2016, on the last day of the budget, we voted to build the fire station out in Piper. There's been multiple excuses of why that fire station took forever to build, and it was almost 5 years. They couldn't buy the property. The ground was wet. They had to do this. They had to do that. We had the ribbon cutting ceremony and they had the groundbreaking ceremony in August or April 2019, and we cut the ribbon in August 2020. Before we moved out there was supposed to be a meeting on the phone with the former mayor and the administrator to talk about the safer grants and the things that they could get. I had talked to the lady prior to, and she said, yep, they'll supply the manpower, and there's another grant, you can get equipment. Well, it was supposed to be at 2 o'clock. Doug Bach called it 5 till 2. When I got on at 2 o'clock, he said the lady didn't know what she's talking about. They didn't want to build the fire station out west in the first place, and it actually requires an additional one being built. We were at the ribbon cutting ceremony today in Fairfax, Mayor, correct? There's 123 business, not 120, 10,000 people. And their request was to open up their fire station. We have some UAW people here tonight, and one of their employees got hurt about a year or so ago and had to drive themselves to the hospital because it took that long to get there. And how much does a life cost? What are we going to do when the most volatile area in all of Kansas City, Kansas is left empty? Now, we did the tour down there, right, Mayor? And Andrade said, we don't need one truck, we need two. Now, if he says that, and we're asking to man it, what led up to that? This whole thing was political. 2 mayors ago, he didn't like the fire department. He didn't want that fire station built. So he drug his feet. Then the administrator drug his feet. The next mayor drug his feet. That's why we're at here right now. Because it's not necessarily about money. Those 10,000 people deserve to have the same coverage the rest of us have. And as Bob said, the Northeast area, they took it from there. They don't live there, but they took it from there. And then we worry about money and we buy all these fancy vehicles that they have over there. And there's 2 car seats in the back seat of one of them. We need to get this solved. We need to make the entire community safe. And I think we need to do it as soon as possible. Thank you, Mayor.
Commissioner Stokes.
Stites District 7. I think it was Mr. Sema that was saying, and would you explain what you were talking about when you said there was a grant applied for and received that I think said that we would go from 4 to 7, but that was never implemented? Is that right?
Correct. So under FEMA, there is something called a SAFER grant. SAFER grant is a staffing for adequate response grant from the federal government. In 2020, the fire department requested permission to apply for the SAFER grant. The purpose of the SAFER grant was to permanently make 6 additional pumpers for firefighter staff pumpers. We at the time had 1 that met the national standard of 4. The grant would have increased that number to 7. At this time, the grant was applied for, awarded and received. And at this time, we still have 1 for firefighter staff pumper. That was at the old Piper Station number 8, which is still in service. But the staffing of that, not the actual individual, but the seat, the firefighter in the seat, was relocated from pumper 8 and Piper to pumper 5 and 910 Quindaro upon the closure of Station 15.
What was that a grant amount? Do you remember?
I don't know what the number was.
That's fine. So
it was for 18 firefighters. I don't know what the dollar amount was, but it was for 18 firefighters.
And through all those numbers that you were just saying, tell me how many did we get out of that then? If it was 418, how many did we get?
We got 18.
I got the full 18.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. My other question that I had was, so currently, and I was at that ribbon cutting this afternoon too and heard loud and clear Fairfax, I believe it was the president. She spoke and said she wanted to see that fire station reopened. But also, so if there is a train that is blocking at Quindaro right now, there's not service that can get down there in a hurry. Is that correct?
Not from that direction. There are limited access points, as everyone here knows. And there are numerous rail crossings at those access points and throughout the district. So if there is a train in any of those locations, and I can speak from personal experience when I worked right down here at fire headquarters for almost 8 years. And when we'd run north up Fairfax Trafficway, the trains that would cross there at the south, I forget the name of the company, but the southern tank field, there's a rail crossing there. we would get stopped at those tracks in our response. There's nothing you can do about it. And it's not very easy to turn a fire truck around, especially if there's other traffic. Generally you're locked into place, and by the time you turn it around and try to go all the way back and around, the train will be gone. You're just delayed.
Well, I too agree that this is a start in that northeast. If this is part of the revitalization program of the Northeast, but this can definitely be something that will help start that. And I'm in favor of getting this back opened up.
Thank you.
Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to say that I appreciate seeing members of the union here tonight. Mr. Sema, Mr. Wing, good to see you all again. Appreciate our chief and deputy chief here. Want to say that when it's always hard to lose something that you already had. And it was a tough decision, but we want to remember that 2 years ago, it was a unanimous vote by the then commission based on what was presented to them with wanting to staff Commissioner Keynes, and I'm saying Commissioner Keynes, I mean that district. And I agree with that. So it was a tough vote. Money is always an issue. And when I evaluate both of these plans, I'll be looking at money because a lot has been talked about the Northeast tonight, but we're talking about millions of dollars here that could go elsewhere, or maybe it should go there. So that will be the analysis, because that's what was determinative 2 years ago when every commissioner then decided at that time that based on the resources available, this was what needed to be done. But I look forward to speaking with representatives of the union, and again, our police chief and his deputies to get a better detailed understanding of this. When we talk about grants, I want to make sure that I understand that grants are going to fund someone from the date of hiring to the date presumably of retirement. That's the kicker with the grants. A lot of times it's for a limited amount of time. So then it will have to come from other funding sources and watching what's in our budget. I don't believe that the Northeast was abandoned. One of the decisions and guidelines dealt with how rapidly other fire stations could get to the Fairfax area. So that needs to be revisited. My understanding, and we've been tracing this, is that, and I'll ask the chief to talk more to this, that 90% of the time the standards were being met. So it's not abandonment. I'd also like to see, I think it was made mention of earlier tonight, of the survey that was done some years ago, recommendations made. Part of that was the redo and improvement of House 5 and House 18, which are also in District 1. So I want to see a lot of improvements to that as well. So, and I'm going to ask Chief if you can tell me if 15 goes out of the Fairfax area. So if there, does it serve anywhere else in the Northeast community outside of Fairfax?
Excuse me, Commissioner, I don't understand what you mean. Can you?
Well, if there was, do they answer calls outside of Fairfax
Right now?
when they were active?
Right, well, they answer calls wherever they're dispatched to.
Okay.
They can go anywhere in the city.
Okay, just want to clarify that. So I look forward to more detailed instruction and review of these proposals from the union and from our own chief. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Kane.
Commissioner Townsend, I did not, would not, and will never vote to close the fire station. It was not a unanimous decision. We have the UAW guys right here. Judy Timmerman was the one that kept stats on how long it took to get to General Motors. And I believe Melissa Clark, the president of the Fairfax district, has those exact same numbers. They failed those numbers twice as much as they met them. In fact, I don't know if they ever met them. So I suggest we get a hold of them again and say, what are the numbers? I don't want the numbers from the either side, union or management. I want the numbers of the people that it's affected. And I want you to think, if you had a family member down there, several years ago, there was an explosion. The Phillips 66 caught on fire. They damn near had to close the General Motors plant. And to watch what's going on, we were in Ohio on a conference, and to see the video, what they sent us back, the longer you wait, we all know the bigger the fire gets. There's more volatile stuff down there than anywhere else in all of Wyandotte County. I don't think they'd want to live within a mile or so. And it's frustrating because I've been dealing with this for a long time. And when we voted on it, not one time did we ever talk about taking one station, closing it, and going out to the other one. And that's why I called FEMA. And FEMA said, we'll pay for the new ones and the equipment. And the former staff and the two former mayors didn't want anything to do with it. So we're here because of that reason. We have to mop up their mess.
Thank you, Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you. That's the good thing about having these tapes. So if my recollection is faulty, I apologize, but I'm going to roll the tape because that was my recollection. The main point I want to make is looking at what the situation is now, how it's going to affect the budget, and how we would pay for what's being proposed on either side. That is the bottom line, because there are a lot of things that the Northeast needs. And so we have to look at all of those. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussions, questions? Commissioner Kane.
Mayor, I appreciate you bringing the two parties together. It's always better to see two sides. And now I think we have a task at hand to get into the weeds with it.
Thank you, Commissioner. I got a question for the chief as well. If you could pull up slide number 5, I believe it was you showed, Chief. No, that's option 5. I'm sorry. If you can hold that, Commissioner Kane has a question. Commissioner Kane.
I was wondering if Bob or JJ had something they wanted to say. You want to wait till he's over or?
I do have one thing
Yeah, go ahead.
It's quicker. When we talk about Station 15 and Station 10 and their locations being truncated, if you look at them on a map, they're identical. Those two stations are identical geographically. The only difference is Station 10 is loaded with equipment and personnel, and it should be, because of the potential in Rosedale, as I spoke to it. That potential exists in Fairfax also. So the discussion of that fire station being truncated, so is Station 10, but it's not closed. Those people in Fairfax, those people in the North End, that Station 15 does respond to the neighborhoods in the North End, normally in a residential response, a structure response, the same way Station 10 does in Rosedale. And look at them on a map And for some reason, we kept Rosedale open. Not only open, it's flush with equipment and personnel. And Fairfax is empty. That's the difference.
Thank you, Chief. Question I had was on that. There's not much with that. Can you expound on that? Maybe cost? Does that coincide with the recommendation that we got from the local union?
Not exactly. That option is a $0 cost. That's literally telling one fire engine that's parked in a fire station today with another unit to drive over there and serve that particular location. The union, the presentation they made was, it was a little bit hard to keep up with, but if you look at the totality of what they're suggesting, they're not suggesting any new apparatus. That's true. That is accurate. But they're suggesting hiring about 6 additional firefighters, which with the staffing factor of 4.1 per seated position is 25 new hires. That's about $2.732 million at today's cost. That's absent a contractual pay raise. I do take issue with one thing Bob said. Station 10, it does have a truncated response area. It can't go east, but it can go south, it can go north, and it can go west. It's not as truncated as 15's current location. But yeah, he's right. It does have a lot of equipment, and there is a direction it can't travel, which is east because they're in Missouri.
I guess the question is, you gave a lot of data as far as costs, personnel. That option right there, what does that look like in terms of dollar amount, personnel, and you talk about relocating existing pumper. What does that look like? Where would you relocate a pumper from to 15? And then is there any diminishing service that would be as a result, or does the union's option that they gave on kind of that list of how this could probably work, is that an option that you've considered in your talks with the union, or just that option alone? Can you be more specific as to how, if you were given direction today to make that happen, what would that look like as far as service for Kansas City, Kansas?
Well, we'd have to a determination would have to be made as to which act. I mean, this is what got us where we're at in the first place. We took a company out of a station. That was the direction the fire department was given. I know Commissioner Kane knows this well. When I don't know what went on before I got here in terms of who was going to be there and how it was going to be paid for. But when Station 12 opened, the fire department was given direction to determine an existing apparatus and ambulance that would be relocated to that station. That's exactly what we're talking about here. That's why the fire department is recommending option 1 if there's a recommendation from us. If we're tasked with providing a recommendation, that would be our recommendation.
I understand that, but if you were given that task right now to implement option 5 as the chief,
right?
What would that look like? And where would you be pulling a pumper and personnel from? How is that even an option?
Well, it would have to come out of a double house. So we have 4 double houses. One of the units in those double houses would have to come out to staff that company, which would leave the double house would become a single house. I'm not a proponent of that, but I was tasked with coming up with some options, and that's one of them. I mean, I don't favor that option, but that's an option for the commission to consider. It's cost-free. It costs nothing.
Would that, I guess the biggest thing, would it diminish safety, which translates, service, which could translate into a diminishment of safety with that type of transfer?
Well, anytime you move an apparatus from anywhere, the people co-located around that area are going to suffer a decline in service. That's absolutely true.
So I guess that bodes well to the argument that we need to have something in Fairfax. Would you agree?
Yeah, but I'd put it on 7th Street Trafficway around Sherman.
short of having a new fire station at, I think, what, 14 million? Yeah.
Yeah.
Short of that, just where we're at today to provide optimal service with the resources that you've been given. And I know that's no fault of your own, but if you had to make a command decision and say the best way to provide services across the board in all four corners of Kansas City, Kansas, and all available fire stations, to do that effectively at minimal cost, would this be that option?
That particular option there, yeah, it's always, of course, it's an option if that's the direction the commission gives.
And then I got another, the SAFER grant. Can you describe that? And
Certainly
can
can.
you support that? And is there any reason as to why that wasn't brought forward this year?
Are we talking about the previous SAFER grant with the 18 firefighters, or are we talking about a different grant?
I guess doesn't matter where I'm talking about today. SAFER grant, can you describe that? And do you see value when we're short-staffed in our fire department as that being an option to shore up monetarily those personnel shortages in a way that could benefit the great folks here in Kansas City, Kansas?
Yes, sir. The SAFER grant will pick up the cost for usually 3 years. And for they'll sometimes pay 100%. During COVID, they were paying 100% for 3 years. But other times it's 75, 35%. And then the municipality, the UG, is on their own after that. Does
that makes sense? But how does that impact if we're just replacing folks? And when you talk about attrition, because, you know, me coming from the police department, I kind of understand that concept.
Right. So
with attrition, doesn't have an effect of balancing?
Well, let me give you these numbers and maybe I can clear that up. Our total strength is 482 employees. Total sworn, that's people who are sworn to put out a fire, is 440. Total current strength is 416. Means we're 24 short. We've got 13 recruit COEs going out. That would leave us 11 short if those COEs are all accepted and they get through the process. But that's a dynamic number. It ebbs and flows. So I couldn't say it's not good. It's not the perpetual answer, a grant, because they're finite.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd just like to say, just Mr. Come forward.
Thank you. I just have a couple of comments I'd like to add if I could. We didn't bring forth any cost analysis because we don't have access to those numbers to provide an accurate estimate for this commission and would not want to bring something forth inaccurately. As far as the cost estimated of our proposal, I'm not sure if we would agree. We would have to see, obviously, those numbers and evaluate that. But our proposal would be essentially a net gain of 6 firefighters per day. That's 18 across 3 shifts. Approximately the same as the SAFER grant, which we had, which at this time has not accomplished the purpose of that SAFER grant. We believe potentially those 18 positions are existing within the fire department that came in 2 years ago. That could be, rather than those 6 4-man pumpers, while we support that, utilized to move towards NFPA 1710 compliance in other areas. Additionally, I want to comment on the relocation of an apparatus. As I stated during our presentation, the ISO independent study and the IAFF GIS analysis did not identify any relocation or closure to open Station 12. I'll agree with the chief in that doing so now to reopen Station 15 would be simply shifting the gaps in coverage around once again. During the 2020 process, in the fire department's analysis, identifying 15s as the relocating apparatus, it was also established by the mapping utilized in their study that any other relocation would be a breach of service. I would also invite at this time for another brief comment, because it was 20 years ago and he would certainly have the history. when Fire Station 6 at 94th and State was opened 20 years ago, that was accomplished by relocation of existing apparatus. And I believe at that time, it was identified that any further relocation, 20 years ago, it was identified that any further relocation of apparatus in Kansas City, Kansas would be a reduction in service. And I would ask Bob to comment to that because he was involved in that process 20 years ago.
That's just a true statement.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sorry, I'm pressing the wrong buttons here, Mr. Wing, Mr. Simmer. I'm not sure if you all had a chance to see those numbers that were presented by the chief before the meeting. I'm curious, as you all were able to observe those and analyze those, did you seem to lean towards any of the recommendations or any of the options that were presented by the chief? And I don't want to put you on the spot, just kind of give me a sense here.
I'll respond in that it's my understanding that the party did not come together and make a joint recommendation. As I said, historically, we always came forward with a joint recommendation. My history has been with other administrations, and I'm not active in the day-to-day operation of the fire department or the fire union anymore. But our belief was, and I think Mayor, you could attest to this, being a former deputy police chief, Commissioner Stites, you could, being a former police officer. The chiefs I worked for in the fire department, we concluded that when we come over here for the things that we could, we come hand in hand. We did our compromising over there. And we never had a mayor, a council, or a commission question us as professional firefighters on the recommendations we made. What I believe should be done is this commission, one thing this commission can do is instruct the fire department and the fire union, bring us something jointly that you all can live with. Let's take this discussion to the fire department and give them a deadline. No, nothing open-ended. We're not going to be having this discussion again 2.5 years from now at election time. Because as you said, Mayor, the politics in this city is worn out. And it's time we move on and we make some decisions based on the good of the community. So Commissioner Johnston, to answer your questions, I'm uncomfortable answering that because I haven't had access to those numbers. President Sim already said he didn't. But I would make the suggestion that the instruction come from the mayor and the commission and the administrator. Get back over there and do your job. And bring us something as professional firefighters you all can live with and that we can take to the community and be proud of. We've done it before and it can be done again. Is it going to cost some bucks? Probably. But we're not going to do it on the cheap because the commissioner said, put a price on a life. Put a price on an injury. Can't be done, but it will exceed any price, hard dollar cost that is being discussed here in public before this commission. That's what needs to be done, in my estimation. Thank you, Mayor.
Well,
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, and makes a whole lot of sense to me. I'm always one that believes that there is power in compromise. And that means that everybody won't get what they want. But if we can get to a point where all parties can be satisfied at a certain place, then that serves as a marker from which we can move forward. And so I'm always one, Mayor, and to my colleagues that would continue to encourage, just as we talked about the earlier issue with regard to safe and welcoming. We made some compromise on the spot, but we made some compromise. And so I'd like to be able to encourage us to be able to do that in that same spirit between the union and our fire department. So thank you, Mayor.
Commissioner Stites.
Stites, District 7. Hey, would somebody be able to tell me in the past 10 years, what the number, how many chiefs we had 10 years ago versus how many we have today with no additional well, with the closure of a fire station, but how many chiefs we had 10 years ago versus today, and what that would look like if we were to transfer some of those positions and the savings to the street level. Thank you.
Commissioner King.
Thank you, Mayor.
Well, I had a question.
Oh, I apologize.
I'm sorry. Apologize. Commissioner Stites, sorry.
Commissioner, I can't at this time give you an exact number. We definitely could put something together. We would have to do the research on it. My belief as an estimate, as we probably are in the neighborhood of approximately 5 more chiefs now than there were 10 years ago. That's a very broad estimate. I do know our command staff has grown over the last several years. I will say this too, and it does date back 25 years, but 25 years ago, we were in the neighborhood of 17 or 18 chiefs. And I believe right now we're at about 30.
And I guess that kind of goes back to what I'm getting at with, if we're needing boots on the ground, I mean, maybe they need to not have so many Yukons and Suburbans running around and people in firefighter uniforms. Thank you.
Well, I would certainly be very honest with you. We feel the priority of this government, of this fire department, and I can certainly tell you the priority of this local union is for the safety of the firefighters and the public that we serve. And as a priority, our resources should be allocated there first. And I would suggest that an analysis of the budget be done to determine if there is areas in which we could make some savings to further increase our staffing and our response capabilities to provide the service where it belongs. Thank you.
I would agree. And it's very easy for us to get top heavy. It seems like that in the private sector and in the public arena also. And what ends up suffering are the people that need those services for the most part, the people in the north end, the people in south end, where it doesn't matter where we're talking about, but you overload. We have, and this is kind of ironic because it's chiefs, but too many chiefs and not enough Indians. Thank you.
We would agree.
Commissioner
Thank you.
King.
Yeah, I apologize, Commissioner. I didn't know you weren't done.
That's all right. You get one.
You know, I worked at General Motors for 35 years, and 21 of those years I worked in safety. So if there was a safety situation, we would go out and address it together, both management and union. And sometimes those discussions got pretty heated, and sometimes you had to take them up front where nobody could hear you. But at the end of the day, we did exactly what Bob said. We came out to unified, told them good, bad, or indifferent. Whatever that answer was the answer, and that's it. And I think that's what we need to task the union and management. You know, you guys need to work what's best for the community. And each of you need to give a little bit because you have to. And I don't want you to come back here and say, they said, you guys need to come back and tell us exactly what both sides needs. And then we need to make that decision, Mayor.
Thank you. Come back. I got a question for you. Did you have some numbers just on the dollar amount that Fairfax brings in? Did you bring that for?
Yes, $20 million in tax revenue.
Okay, thank you.
Is the estimate that we pulled from a report from a couple of years ago.
And that doesn't count the BPU power usage either.
Thank you. Thank you. Just to wrap this up, just want to thank the UAW for being here as well. They've been a strong advocate for that fire station and supporting 15s. And they also noted that they would like to see that fire station open along with the Fairfax Industrial Association. So we're glad to see them here as well. That call to action that has gone out from Commissioner Johnson, that was the original call to action from myself, from Commissioner Kane and Commissioner Bynum, as well as our administrator, for you all to work together in a way collaboratively to bring something to this commission that was actionable, that you both could agree upon, as opposed to maybe diverging options. It seems like, just my opinion, the options that the chief brought forward might coincide with some of the recommendations from the union. And so it doesn't seem like a really long bridge to cross. I can say that public safety, just me coming from that background, is one of those things that I support. I support our police department. I support our fire department, our EMS workers. My belief, just from my experience, and I'll just use myself, people will put up with raggedy politicians, so they'll vote their mayor out. They'll put up with bad streets. They'll deal with schools that may not be completely adequate, parks where swings don't work. But when they pick up the phone and they dial 911, that's where they draw the line. And when you talk about the taxes, the fees, and the pilot that goes on our bills, I've had people tell me that they've had enough. Because then they start asking, what are we getting for our dollar and what are we getting for our money? And I can tell you, when you talk about the amount of money that Fairfax brings in, and then the crossover service that station provides to an area that has been disinvested and disenfranchised, and you've heard me say it for far too long, I think that's an area that we need not overlook any further. And I think that this commission, and I ask that not only that this call to action not go out to our command and our union to come together to work, but this commission get behind this effort to support public safety, because to have a great Kansas City, Kansas, you got to have a safe Kansas City, Kansas. And that means supporting the men and women in uniform that keeps our community safe, the good men and women. And so I just want to let the command and the union know we support you. And I think that's a shared message from this commission that I think I feel comfortable saying. We support all our men and women that wear uniform to keep this community safe. So I just like maybe just a show of hands, because this is not an actionable item. I just want to just get some sense that our administrator and our fire chief and his staff, as well as a union, to just kind of give a direction. Are we saying that we support them working together to at least bring back a proposal that would give something actionable to responsibly open up Station 15 in Fairfax?
Can we put a time on it there?
If you got a question, I'll let you ask that. Make that
Can we put a time on it, Mayor?
Commissioner Stites.
Commissioner Stites, District 7. Could we put a time limit on that when we would like to see a proposal brought back? And I don't know how long that takes. Is 30 days adequate? It is 30 days then.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, just for clarity, we are going to go through the normal process of putting this through the standing committee before bringing this back to full commission, because there are a lot of details that need to be vetted and things that just need to be ironed out before it comes back to this body. And so as long as there's clarity on that, absolutely.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Kane.
I'd like to have on threes, so both groups know what's going on, and then come to the standing committee.
Okay, well, don't know if we can commit to that just as the time frame, but Administrator, you want to weigh in?
What I'd like to know is if we can get the proposal together and you want to do on threes, if you want to extend the time just a little bit to make sure that we can get all the commission members together for the on threes, and then we can get it through standing committee as well.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Do you want me to put 45 days on it? Or
President Seema, Chief. Okay.
I'd like to, time limits are sometimes hard to keep. I just think that if you all could get this done in short order, expeditiously, as you bring your teams together and really talk and move that forward. And I'm really going to lean on our administrator to facilitate that. And she's going to move this thing forward, hopefully in a manner that hopefully they'll meet everybody's expectations. Commissioner Burrows.
Thank you, Mayor. This isn't an issue that has not been out here for a while. It's been going on for quite a while. Many of us are aware of the needs and what happened with the Fairfax issue. And there were a number of us that were very supportive of keeping Fairfax open. I believe we lease more vehicles. We're getting to the point where we're leasing more vehicles. And so when I see the cost of these vehicles come through in proposals, I want to take that back to my budget subcommittee and review those contracts to ensure that we're getting the proper equipment. I think, honestly, we've got intelligent individuals on both sides of this issue. I believe they've heard basically our walking orders tonight to get together and come forward with a plan that we believe that the commission can get behind. I don't think there's a commission up here that doesn't support public safety. I just think it's a matter of being able to put to rest the division in our community between our fire department and administration. And I want to be clear that I don't believe it's this administration at all that has had an issue with the fire department. What others did is behind us. Let's build it together collectively and put this issue to rest so that when we talk about public safety in Wyandotte County, it's not in a negative way. It's in a way that's respected and deserved for each and every one of the people that are serving us in public safety and in uniform. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any more discussion? All right, that concludes this and takes up to our last item on the agenda. It's a presentation from our interim county administrator on grants and grant process. I ask our administrator, Ms. Harrison Lee, to make some remarks and turn it over to staff for presentation.
Interim County Administrator Cheryl Harrison Lee. So the commission established the infrastructure committee. Staff from Public Works and other staff have been working with Secretary Lawrence and Commissioner Kane to look at potential grant opportunities for infrastructure. And Commissioner Kane, would you like to provide some insight on some of the work that the staff's been doing with you on the grant process with the Secretary of Transportation?
Thank you, Administrator. We, several of us met from staff, along with some folks from BPU, WIDAC, and the Chamber. And this is probably my 5th meeting with Secretary Lorenz. One of the things that she talked about is you had to have a shovel-ready project. And let's say it's $10 million. And then there's a way to apply for a grant. I guess we have a grant lady who's there with us, and she can apply for a grant and even cover some of that. So if we have a $10 million project and they pay $7 million, we can take that $7 million and put another project. And one of the things we have to remember is you got to have one project. So the commission is going to have to decide what project that is as a whole, and once you get this one going, then you go after another one. She made a comment the other day that one municipality applied for 3 major projects, and she said they're not going to get any of them. So whatever project we apply for, we better make sure it's the money we get the most bang for our buck. And Jeff and his staff, they have, and the financial was there, they've got several already set up. So we need to sit down with some of those folks and say, what is it? Bring it to the commission and say, all right, here's your 5 options, and let's make a decision.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Kane. So we will continue to have this item on the agenda for updates. We'll be continuing to work to see if we can get some options in front of the commission for a decision. And also just FYI, the portal is open for nonprofits for ARPA funding, and that closes on June 24th. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Administrator. Thank you, Commissioner Kane. And just to reiterate, Commissioner Kane has been tasked and he's accepted to chair an infrastructure task force. And this is directly related to the funds that were approved last year that should be coming through the state to be distributed for infrastructure needs. And Commissioner Stites also agreed to co-chair this task force. So we're anxiously awaiting to see what portion of that Wyandotte County can receive, but we do know that that is forthcoming. And so like our administrator indicated, we're going to keep you all posted as things progress and move forward. But that is just probably just an update as we move along with continuous updates because infrastructure is a huge need here in Kansas City, Kansas, and Wyandotte County. So that concludes. We have no further business from this governing body. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
I got a motion and a second. Clerk, roll call, please.
Roll call, McKiernan,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane, Stites, Davis,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
The vote is 7-0. The motion carries.